Hello, this is Joe Donovan. Hello, this is Joe Donlin, and we are going to start in just 2 minutes. We're just waiting to give people a few minutes to get on the webinar. We'll be back. All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joe Donlin, and I'm the Director of Regulatory Outreach and Education in the Division of Professions and Occupations at DORA. Before we officially start, I'd like to double-check the audio to make sure everyone can hear us. So if a few of the webinar participants could please click on your hand icon to let us know you can hear us. Okay, it looks like we're good to go. So I want to welcome everyone to our webinar today. We know that you are taking time out of your typical workday to participate, and we really appreciate the interest you're showing in and the attention to these new requirements for pharmacy technicians. Today we hope to provide and clarify information regarding the new certification requirement for all pharmacy technicians in Colorado. We will start with a presentation from Dimitri Kugan. Dimitri is the Program Director for the State Board of Pharmacy. Following Dimitri's presentation, we will take as many questions as possible, and other experts at the division will join in that portion of today's event. We are pleased so many people from all across Colorado registered for today's webinar event. Because we have a large number of attendees, we will only allow written questions to be answered today. So if you have a question, please submit it by typing it in the appropriate box on your screen. Typically, that question box shows up in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. So again, I want to thank you for attending today, and I will now pass the microphone to the State Board of Pharmacy Program Director, Dimitri Kunin.
Thank you, Joe. So we'll go ahead and go through the slides, and then we'll open it up for questions. The purpose of this webinar is mostly to address questions or concerns you may have in the field. So the slides are going to be relatively quick. I hope to cover them in about 10 or 15 or so minutes. And then during the Q&A portion, you'll have an opportunity, which you can start doing as we progress through the slides if you would like, to type out your written questions. We'll read the questions and answer them here. The Q&A will be treated as a panel. So I'll be one individual that can answer some questions from the program side. We also have an inspector that's available. Mark O'Neill is here to address any questions from a field perspective, if you want to ask any to Mark. And then Donna Boehm is also available from our licensing team who processes the applications that come in. Her team is doing that. So far, we've received quite a few thousand applications for technicians and processed many of them. We'll go through processing time and things like that and try and get ahead of some of the questions that you may have. But I think it's important to start with why we're here. So House Bill 19-1242 last year was signed by Governor Jared Polis on June 3rd of 2019. The bill specifically requires pharmacy technicians practicing on or after March 30th of this year, 2020, to obtain a certification or provisional certification from the State Board of Pharmacy in Colorado. That certification is from us and is often confused with a certification that is required for the non-provisional certification that you get from one of the authorized agencies that we'll discuss later. I want to make sure that you're equipped as a licensed professional going forward to find the necessary tools and resources from the statutory law and our rules should you have any questions outside of the webinar. On our website, on DORA, there's a pharmacy technician webpage. A lot of that information is similar to the pharmacy webpage, but on there you can find our statutes and our rules and our policies. Some of them are a bit long. If you want to go to any specific area related to being a technician or practicing as a technician in the field, feel free to utilize Control Find and navigate to the word technician in those specific areas and read up on that. That may address a lot of the questions that you may have if you haven't already done so. There's a few parts of law I want to just pause and reiterate that are important, and later if you want to look them up yourself, you're more than welcome to. But certification in section 103, 8.5 is defined as certification to practice as a pharmacy technician issued by the board in accordance with section 12-281-115 and includes a provisional certification. So again, that is the requirement to get a certification, either provisional or non-provisional through us as an agency, which the non-provisional, which we'll get to in a second, will give you time to get the necessary certification to get the non-provisional. Definition of pharmacy technician or certificant means a person who is certified by the board to practice as a pharmacy technician and includes a person issued a provisional certification as well. The definition of practice as a pharmacy technician is a little long-winded. I'll try to go through it quickly, but it has 6 important parts. It means engaging in any of the following activities involved in the practice of pharmacy under the supervision and delegation of a supervising pharmacist. 1, receiving and initially inputting new written facsimile, which is fax, or electronic orders. 2, preparing, mixing, assembling, packaging, labeling, or delivering a drug or device. 3, properly and safely storing drugs or devices. 4, maintaining proper records for drugs and devices. 5, transferring prescriptions. And 6, other activities as authorized and defined by board rule. There's also 1-15.5, which is the certification of pharmacy technicians that discusses the requirement for March 30th. We discussed that earlier. There's also subsection 122, which discusses limited authority to delegate activities to pharmacy technicians. You may want to review as well. I won't go into the details to save us time. Moving on to slide number 3. So what's the deadline? So we'll mention it again because it's coming up fast. Any pharmacy technician who plans to work on or after March 30th must have a state certification. So in order to work on March 30th, you must obtain a certification or provisional certification by March 29th. Certification from a national organization is not a substitute for state certification. And remember, if you don't have a certification from a national organization, that's the option to apply for a provisional certification that grants 18 months to go down the other path. Currently, there are, if you look in board rule, there are 2 organizations that are accredited. So we define it as nationally recognized certification board for pharmacy technicians as those certification boards that are approved by the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy, the NABP, or the National Commission of Certifying Agencies. Currently, and this may change in the future, and the law is flexible to allow that, but currently those 2 certification or 2 bodies that certify that we allow are either the PTCB, which is the Pharmacy Technician Certification Board, or the EXCPT, which is the exam for certification of pharmacy technicians offered by NHMA. I want to point out one thing here on this slide, and that is if you apply through March 29th, and any application, if you look at board policy 20-2, that policy delineates what the board has granted the program to approve or not approve certain yes type of applications. So you can look in there, but certain applications where individuals may have a history of discipline or arrests and things like that require board review, we will be having an additional meeting sometime in early April to address any applications that come in that need that type of review all the way through the 29th. Anytime after the 30th, if somebody applies and requires board review, the pharmacy board meets every 2 months or 6 times a year, and therefore the next meeting after March or March 19th is going to be in May. So the board may not review those specific applications, which are rare, but I wanted to make sure that people are aware to get their applications in timely. So the next slide is what is required for state certification. So an applicant must read and write the English language. An applicant must have certification as a pharmacy technician in good standing from a certifying organization, which oftentimes means keeping up with their necessary CE. An applicant must attest to a criminal background check. An applicant must submit an online application, and an applicant must pay a $57 fee. I just want to go back to that second bubble. That one was specifically towards a non-provisional application for a pharmacy tech. And then a question that often comes up is, do I have to pay the $57 fee twice? First, when I sign up to be a provisional technician, and then second, when I apply to be a non-provisional, and the answer is yes. They're 2 separate license types. One has an expiration date, one is able to be renewed. Next slide is who's eligible for the provisional certification. If someone does not hold a certification in good standing from a certifying body, the individual can apply for provisional. The provisional will last up to 18 months. It is not renewable. The board can extend that 18 months due to hardship on a case-by-case basis, and that's something the certificant at some point has to apply and ask for from the board, and that would have to go under board review. The next slide is the application process. That process is outlined on our website. These slides are currently available on the technician website, and you can go there and pick it up as well. So, and I'll have to double check if we'll have to update this, because I know our website is undergoing a current change, and I don't know if it'll impact that hyperlink or not. We'll double check and make sure that that's up to date. But the process may take up to 30 days. Let me ask this now, just because I imagine applicants are thinking about it too. If there's a reason that somebody applies, let's say on March 20th, will they be able to get an answer back that they're certified?
Every applicant that is eligible will be issued a license on or before March 29th.
Perfect. Thank you, Donna. All right, so next slide is just an outline of the 2 places you can go on our webpage. There's a pharmacy technician webpage and also a board of pharmacy webpage. I just want to pause here for a second to remind individuals on this call, because I do understand that for many technicians, this is the first time they'll be interacting with a government agency, an agency that certifies you. We are an umbrella agency, so the board of pharmacy sits kind of next door to the medical board, to the board of nursing, and we're all a part of the division of profession and occupation, which this division sits under the Department of Regulatory Agencies, and it's structured in that way. The board itself, the pharmacy board, again, it meets every 2 months. It is made up of 7 members. 5 are professional, which are pharmacists. 2 are public. All board members are appointed by the governor, and they run about 4-year terms with a possibility for reappointment. The board mostly is responsible when it meets to review, discuss, and determine discipline for complaints that come about licensees, which can be our licensees or registrants like pharmacies, wholesalers, pharmacists, interns, and now pharmacy technicians. We are a complaint-driven organization, so complaints can come to us in a variety of ways, but mostly they come by the online complaint form. And then also the board administers rulemaking, which if a bill requires rulemaking like this one did, or other times, the board will carry out its rulemaking responsibilities. Without going much further or delaying, we're at 2:15. We have about three-quarters of an hour to go over questions, and we'll start to review them in just a moment. All right, so we're going to start to look at questions as they've come in.
Okay.
And I'll read them and kind of pass them along. Joe, did you have anything to add?
No, thanks, Dimitri. Before we start doing that, I just wanted to again introduce the others who are going to join Dimitri in answering your questions. First, Donna Boehm is one of the licensing supervisors in the Office of Licensing at the division, and she is in the trenches as part of our licensing team and is reviewing all of the applications. So she can cover soup to nuts anything that you might ask today. And we also have Mark O'Neill. He is one of the pharmacy inspectors. He is currently out in the field and answering questions as he travels around the state. So among the three, we have a lot of expertise at this table. So please don't hesitate to write in your questions. And let's take the first question.
All right. So it looks like the first question is, one sec. What is the difference between a provisional and a non-provisional certification? So I'll let Donna answer that one.
A full license means that you have your certification from either the PTCB or your EXCPP certification that's active and in good standing. If you don't have one of those certifications, you'll need to apply for a provisional license, and that will give you 18 months to obtain one of those certifications.
Thank you, Donna. Next question is, in the process of taking national certification, may or may not be done end of March, will this need to be completed alongside state board? So I'm just reading the questions as they come. I imagine the individual is asking if I'm taking a national certification exam sometime that's butting up into the deadline of the 29th of March, will I have to do? It's pretty much, Donna, you tell me otherwise, but they have to have it in hand when they apply for one or the other.
Yes, you definitely have to have certification to go to work on March 30th. If you're currently working as a farm tech and you're going to take your certification sometime in March, but you don't have a set date or you don't know if you'll get your results by then, please apply for the pharmacy provisional license so you can get to work on March 30th. And then once you obtain your certification, you can apply for a full pharmacy tech license.
Yeah, yep. Thank you, Donna. Mm-hmm. Next one is, will the board require CEs upon renewal of registration? I think I can answer that. So I think that's something to be determined. Rulemaking for that requirement hasn't occurred yet, and it hasn't started. I will say, and Donna, confirm if you can, at the time when they need to renew, I imagine they'll probably need proof of the current certification or that it's currently active, because most of those certifications require them to use a certain amount of CEs.
Correct.
For the certification to be active.
Again, the rules have not been set, but we do require demonstrated professional competency to renew licenses here at DORA, because we want to make sure that the most qualified people are working in the profession. So again, the rules will be determined later than that, but you expect to have either your active skilled professional certification or some CEs, but again, that will be determined at a later date.
Yeah, and I think I could say too that I don't know what those rules will look like. It'll be up to the board, but I don't think it's out of the realm of reason that they would be similar to what we require of pharmacists from a CE perspective, which for pharmacists we require an attestation.
Correct. We require an attestation of CEs, and then we do a random audit, and then those selected for the audit do need to prove their CEs.
Yeah, and we do the random audit a few months after their renewal.
Yes.
And statutorily, we can audit up to 5% yes. of the licensees, or in this case, the certificate. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Next is, do I include married and maiden name on PTCB equals maiden?
So if you're going to apply for a license and your driver's license and your PTCB certification are in different names and your application is in another name, yes, we need to have name change documents. We require every applicant to use their legal name so we can have transparency for our consumers. So please make sure that you are providing those documents.
The next question is there any way DORA can accept group payments for registration? I know I've looked into this because it was asked a while back, and I think the answer is no.
Correct.
Still currently no.
Correct. We require you to fill out an online application, and each online applicant does need to log in, have their own login, and pay the fee in order for that to close the registration. So at this time, we do not have group payments.
Thank you. Next is, please repeat the name of the second certifying organization besides PTCB. So
that organization is the National Health Career Association, and that's the EXCPP exam that those folks provide.
Perfect. Just to clarify, if we have paid the $57 and gone through the application, that's all we need to do, or is there more?
Alyssa, you need to wait until you've actually been issued the certification to go to work on March 30th. If you have applied and you are eligible, you will be issued on or before that date. But just submitting an application and fee is no guarantee of licensure. You still need to verify that you have a license before you go to work on March 30th.
And Donna, I guess taking the perspective of this individual asking the question, how will they be notified after they've applied that they have it? Is it by email?
All of our applicants are notified via email once the license is issued, and it does have instructions on how to print your license because we do not mail any wallet cards or wall certificates.
So, and just looking at, hold on one sec. So the next question is, does this rule apply to techs who are specifically working on federal military installations?
And federal military installations are exempt facilities, so licensure is not required for those folks.
Will the board be adding technician representation? I'm assuming that's meant in terms of the board and the board composition. I don't have an answer to that question. We here at DORA and BPO, we're tasked with implementing the law. We don't navigate or push towards any one specific law. So the legislative process goes on at the beginning of every year. There's also sunset processes that go on, and recommendations are made for things like that in those types of processes. But DORA and BPO and the Board of Pharmacy itself does not specifically navigate or push towards any one specific type of change in law or rule. Next question is, how do I know if I applied for a provisional or non-provisional license? I applied but forgot which I chose.
Well, hopefully when you logged in, there was a selection to apply for a provisional or a non-provisional, and you selected the one that best suits you. If you have a certification, Joe, currently, when my staff reviews the applications, we will go ahead and update that to a full license if you're qualified for that.
Perfect. How do I get started or apply for DORA pharmacy technician?
You need to visit the website, dpo.colorado.gov, and there is a link to apply for a license, and then you will create a login and then walk through the steps.
These are very licensing heavy documents. Thank you.
Yeah.
How often does the state certification need to be renewed?
The state certification, the initial one will be good until the end of October in 2021, and I do not know if it's been determined to be a 1-year or a 2-year license. We'll go with 2-year for now.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Just to clarify, I am already licensed through PTCB. This is an additional certification needed, is that correct? So I'm glad that somebody asked this question because it's on the minds of many, and it's one that we've tried to address. Understandably, the language in statute can cause confusion because it's called a certification, right? Our pharmacists are licensed and they're licensees. Our pharmacies are registered and they're registrants. Pharmacy technicians are certified through the state and the certificate. Yes, you hold two certificates. One from the PPCB, that's in and of itself. All right. So the certificate you hold from PPCB is in and of itself between you and that agency as a certified individual. The certificate you hold for the state of Colorado is the statutory requirement to have that certificate in place, either a provisional certificate or non-provisional, to be able to work as a pharmacy technician on or after March 30th.
So keep in mind the PTCB certificate or the EXC PT certificate, that's your national organization, your national certification organization. That is not a state license. They're two different things. So even with your national certification, you still need to have a state-issued license.
Will renewal be required yearly with additional fees and another background check?
Renewals will be done every 2 years. The first initial renewal will be done in 2021, and then you'll be in the 2-year cycle. Of course, there are always renewal fees, and we do not waive renewal fees. We will not require an additional background check unless you let your license expire. And then for a reinstatement, we may. That has not been determined yet.
Thank you, Donna. Next question is, can we use the same CEs that we use for the national certification, PCCB, or will it have to be completely separate CEs? So we don't have the rules yet. That's to be determined. I think that thought process will be factored in. And again, I want to remind everybody that in the rulemaking process, there are stakeholder meetings, at least one, if not more, and your voice will definitely be heard, and you'll get notices as stakeholders in the process. So once you're certified, you'll be added to a list, and when there's rulemaking that occurs that involves technicians or the practice of pharmacy, you'll be notified of an upcoming rulemaking meeting, and you can provide that input either at the meeting or by email. Next question is, CE is required to renew the national certification, and the Colorado law says that renewing tech has to have active and good standing national certification upon renewal. They will have to do CE for that. Both NHA and PTCB require 30 hours every 2 years for renewal, correct? Just clarifying.
Again, no, we have not determined the requirements for renewals at this time. So we can't quote CE requirements at this time.
If you are currently
work on the 30th.
Yeah, I mean, we can't really answer that. So I'll read the question. If you are currently an active farm tech, do we stop reporting to work if we don't have state board licensing?
As of March 30th, yes. You are required to have a state license as of March 30th.
Yeah. Next is, if a technician gets married and changes their name legally, do they need to reapply, or is there a different process?
There is not a different process. On our website, there are instructions on how to change your name. You'll submit your name change document, so either your marriage certificate, a court order, or your passport with your new married name, and we'll just update your name. There's no new application process required.
Thank you, Donna. What is the process to go from provisional to certified pharmacy tech once the CPHT is obtained or the certificate is obtained?
And that requires a whole new application. It's 2 separate licenses, so they require each their own application, their own fee. So if you have a provisional certification that was issued, and then later on you get certified as from the CPT or the EXCPT, you will need to apply with a new application for the full pharmacy tech license and pay the additional fee.
All right, next question. Can you give guidance on computer technicians that are working on pharmacy records in the computer system? Do they need to have a license? So I want to remind, I'll throw this to Mark, our inspector, in just a moment, but I want to remind, in general, the board does not give practice opinion, legal advice, or any sort of guidance outside of what is already available in statute and rule, or interpretation of the law. And that's kind of where this question falls. I would remind the individual, as a certified individual, to reference the statute that defines the practice of pharmacy and the practice as a pharmacy technician in some of the sections I outlined earlier. And other ways of doing that is to look at the statute or rule, do a find of technician language, and read that and make that determination, as we cannot make it for you. Often, a question like this is great because we don't really understand the underlying parts of it. But Mark, what's your perspective on that as a field inspector?
I just know that in the last 2-3 months, I've spoken to lots of people who work in pharmacies, and there seems to be no end of tasks that those people accomplish during the course of the day. But what I would do is just what Dimitri said, and particularly that definition where it says receiving and initially inputting a new written facsimile or electronic orders. Kind of hard to tell from your question if that's really specifically what you're asking about, or maybe you're asking about billing at the end of the week for the pharmacy, or ordering, or many things. So
yeah, even number 4. So Mark is referring to 38.5A, the definition of practice as a pharmacy technician. And in addition to the number 1 that Mark quoted, which is receiving and initially inputting new written, fax, or electronic orders, number 4 discusses maintaining proper records for drugs and devices. Now, what that translates to and means or doesn't mean in the field, like Mark said, every day the practice of pharmacy is evolving and changing, and sometimes the law can't keep up with it. Sometimes the law is not as prescriptive as your question may be, and the board is not in a position to provide practice guidance or opinion in those circumstances. Next question is, are the slides available on the website? And the slides are available on the website, as well as the Q&A and the bill summary. How do we know if there's anything we need to do after we have paid? Do you just wait to hear back from you?
Yes, Alyssa, you do wait. If there's anything missing, my staff will send you an email and let you know what we need, and you can email those documents, items back to us ASAP to get you licensed. And once you're issued the license, again, you'll get the email from Dora stating, congratulations, you have the license, and we'll give instructions on how to print your license.
Just want to take a moment right now. We just want to do a voice check to make sure that everybody can still hear us. If you can hear us, can you please raise your hand in the app? All right, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, we'll keep going with the questions. Once we are issued a non-provisional certification, if the PTCB certification lapses, would there be a reinstatement process for the Colorado license?
We are not going to monitor your licenses based on your national certification. However, if one of the requirements to renew is that you have an active certification, we will be checking that, so we would not be able to renew if that has lapsed. But at this time, I can't tell what any kind of renewal or reinstatement requirements would be. It's too early.
Thank you, Donna. Next question is, I am retired, but keep my PTCB certification just in case I need to go back to work. Do you have any provision for someone like me who is not currently employed as a tech?
And we do not. If you're keeping your PTC certification because you may or may not want to work, you might want to go ahead and obtain the license, because if you get a call on April 1st that they need you, you would not be able to practice in the state without a license.
Is there a fee for us to apply for the state of Colorado, or is it just through the PTCB?
The application through DORA does come with a $57 fee.
If you are not working as a technician currently, but hold a PTCB that's active, is this required?
You're never required to obtain a license, and if you want to maintain your PTCB, that's fine. But again, if you do decide that you want to go back to work, you will need to acquire the license. So it's up to you if you want to apply and get the license now.
Next question is, regarding the employer-based criminal history check, what exactly do you need? I don't recall ever receiving my background check information when I was hired. I was just informed I passed it.
Hi, Keila. We do not require you to submit anything for the background check. In the application, we ask that you attest to having an employer or an educational background check, and you will just attest to it. You do not need to submit anything for it.
If you are already certified, do all required CEs need to be completed before March 30th?
No, at this time there are no CEs required to apply. This is a brand new certification. You have to be certified through either the PTCB or the National Health Career Association to get a license. There are no CEs at this time.
The next question is, can you provide the site for the application again, please?
That link will be dpo.colorado.gov, G-O-V.
Next is, I am not currently employed as a pharmacy tech. Will I need to go ahead and do this now, or is it okay to wait until I get hired as a pharm tech again?
We cannot tell you when to apply, although if you think that you're going to start working soon, you might as well go ahead and apply. But again, as of March 30th, if you want to work in the state of Colorado, you have to have a license. So it's up to you when you're going to go back to work and when you want to apply.
I think inherently in that question, Donna, and nobody's asked this yet, but it was asked in the last webinar. I think we say in the application process that processing may take up to 30 days, right?
Right.
And individuals like that are probably factoring that into their calculation of when to apply. Right now, in this high volume time of applications, what has the average turnaround been?
So right now, we've received over 5,000 applications and we've licensed over 5,000 folks. We are currently working on applications from March 3rd. So we're really right in the ballgame. But once March 30th hits, those applications will be processed in the order in which they're received because we license several dozen different types of applications. So while we're expediting the farm techs now, after March 30th, the deadline date, those applications will not necessarily be expedited in front of all of the other applications anymore. So go ahead and apply now if you need to work in April because this is the best time to get your application in.
Yeah, I think that deserves its own accolade. I just have to say that I've interacted and worked with a number of state board agencies and board of pharmacy, and I think undoubtedly our licensing team and your team is one of the fastest and most responsive teams in the country.
Oh, thank you.
So on the behalf of all the licensees and future certificates, thank you for everything you've done. I think that means a lot, and I know we don't get that because once they get their credential, they're off to the races, right? But I think it does mean a lot, and when you're about to apply, and if you're on this webinar, I assume you probably haven't applied yet, just know even though it says up to 30 days right now, and this is a busy time, you've taken that priority. So, and in general, even though we say that once we're in the normal timeline, I think you do an excellent job and it's relatively quick.
Thank you.
And this is Joe. I do want to reemphasize that is for clean applications. If somebody answers one of the screening questions and it has to be reviewed by the board, then come April, the next board meeting isn't until May. So there may be an early April review for some that were left, but I want to be clear that I don't think that Don is saying that all the applications, if they come in with an answer that needs to be reviewed by the board necessarily, that those could have an extended period of time.
Correct. The applications that are received that meet the qualifications will be issued immediately. Applications received that require board review are at the discretion of the board, and we will forward those over as fast as we get them, and then it's at the discretion of the board.
Yeah, and for those, I appreciate, Joe, you stepping in and saying that. For those, we are pulling a report every day to see which require board review, and although we haven't set in stone that April date for that meeting to address any applicants who require board review that have applied through March 29th. Undoubtedly, that will happen soon. That's something the board will have to make a decision on at its next meeting on March 19th. But there have been very few applications that have required that of the large pool of thousands. I think it's safe to say, too, that if you haven't heard back and you have concerns, you can email the pharmacy board, but I think more specifically, if you've applied and haven't heard back, there's a general licensing email box that they can.
We do have a licensing email inbox, and keep in mind, we have gotten thousands of applicants, and I have several staff members working on this all day long. So again, we're working on applications from March 3rd. So it is much appreciated for you to give our staff time to get licensed. Again, you're not required to have a license before March 30th, so it's not like you can't go to work tomorrow if you applied yesterday and you're panicking. So please allow staff time to do their job, and everyone that has applied and is eligible will have that license available to them on March 30th.
Thank you, Donna. Next question is this a full exam criteria as needed for PTCB, law, math, calculations, and measurements? I'm not quite sure what that question is asking.
Are they maybe guessing that there is an exam attached to the state certification?
So what's that then? Is there an exam attached to the state certification?
No.
There is not.
Yeah.
We require the PTCB. So whatever test you've taken through the PTCB, we just need verification of that PTCB certificate.
Or of the other exam.
Yes, or of the EXCPT exam.
Yeah.
But we're not going to issue another exam. No.
I think this was asked earlier in a different way, but if you're planning on taking your CPHT after March, are you able to apply after March? So yes, but if you want to work on March 30th or after and you don't have your CPHT yet, then you need your provisional certification, which you can apply for without that credential. When we hire a new uncertified technician, when is the best time for them to start the license process? I would think that after our own background check, but how quickly will they get the license or certificate after March 30th? I think this was addressed earlier, but it's worth reminding.
Daniel, they can apply for licensure at the same time they do all their paperwork for their new employment. We require that they attest to having the background check. They don't need to wait until the results get back unless you would like them to, but they can apply the same time they're doing your licensure process. And again, after March 30th, applications will be processed in the order in which they're received, and we ask that you allow up to 30 days. It will probably be much faster, but we'd like for you to at least allow that much time.
Okay, so I'm a certified pharmacy tech through PTCB. Are you saying I need to apply for a license on top of that now? Will I have to take a test? So it looks like we've answered that.
We have answered that, and the answer is yes.
All right, next question is, when we apply for the provisional licenses, is that the PHTP? Also, when we want the state certificate, would that be the PhD on the website?
Correct. A full pharmacy technician is PHAT, for PHA is pharmacy, T is for the technician. The pharmacy provisional is PHATP, so pharmacy technician provisional.
The next question is, if I move out of Colorado, does the state license transfer to another state? Or do I need to inquire about licensing in the new state? And I want to be clear, people keep using the word license and certificate. So we call it a certificate. Pharmacists are licensed. They're one and the same thing. It's just a matter of semantics.
And we do not have reciprocity with any state. So if you have a Colorado license now and you're moving out of state, you'll need to check with the new state to see what their requirements are.
Next question is, I think that one we just answered, right? If I leave the state and not visit for a few years, would you recommend me to get the license now, just in case, or get licensed in the state I will be living in?
Well, we can't provide legal advice like that. What I can say is if you're going to work in Colorado, yes, you need the license. If you're leaving Colorado soon and you're going to work somewhere else, then that's completely up to you.
I'm in the military, but keep my certification for just in case when I get out, but I apply after March 30th.
Yes, Monique, we are going to be accepting applications every single day now. The bill starts on March 30th, so you have to have a license as of March 30th, but you can apply on any day.
Next question is, please repeat website slowly and review the steps again for PCCP certified technicians.
Okay, the website is D like in dog, P like in Paul, O like in Oscar, dpo.colorado.gov. And you will go to that website, select apply for a license, create a login, and then it'll take you to where you want to be. You select the profession, walk through the application process, and then pay your fee.
Does the law impact technicians who work in a pharmacy only? I work for a major PBM in a call center type environment. Mark?
I would say, once again, sort of what Demetria and I talked about before, is to be aware of the definition, and particularly receiving initial input of new prescriptions, and then that other one, maintaining proper records. And I think that's going to be between you and your bosses to figure out the legal ramifications of just what exactly your tasks are.
Thank you, Mark. Looking for other questions. We're kind of at the bottom of the list. Let's see. Are there plans to have license reciprocity in the future?
We do not offer reciprocity with any of our license types. We have a lot of expedited licensing methods, such as endorsement, but we do not have reciprocity.
And for those that may not be familiar with the term reciprocity, what does that mean to you?
That means you apply through one state and you show them all of your qualifications, and then you can just go to the other state that has reciprocal agreements and not have to show anything, just have the application. And we don't have that with any of our professions at this time.
So it's 2:45, and looks like we're at the end of the list of questions. If you have any additional questions, please type them through now. Do we need national certification for Colorado, or does it depend on the state?
Yes, you need to have national certification through either PTCB or the National Health Career Association in order to obtain a Colorado license.
How often do we need to reapply for this certification?
This initial license, whether it be a full or a provisional, will expire on October 31st of 2021. The provisionals are not allowed to be renewed or reissued, but the farm techs will then renew, and then they'll be in a 2-year cycle.
Are these slides going to be posted somewhere for review?
Yes, this is Joe. They will be posted on the website, and currently there is a recording of the earlier webinar that is already there.
Okay. Here's a question. It's a good one. Does a cashier that brings out prescriptions require certification?
This is Mark. If you are purely just ringing up the cash register, you do not need certification for that.
All right, I'm going to go through some hypotheticals with Mark, because people may be wondering. So when you say we're ringing out a prescription, so say I go and pick up a prescription for John Smith. It's in a bag. The prescription bottle is inside the bag. The leaflet is stapled to it. So I need certification to transact that.
No, because the bag will have a vial. Let's just say it's a vial inside it, and on the outside of the bag will be the receipt with Joe Smith's name on it and prescription number, and it's all stapled together. You do not need that. Now,
what if it's separated?
I knew you were going there. If it's separated, that's a different kind of a definition. There is in our rule a definition of what a technician would need to do, and that's if you're taking, let's say you've got 3 separate vials with 3 separate drugs, and all the paperwork is sitting on the counter, and you want to put those into a bag and staple the paperwork to the bag. That is a technician duty.
Thank you, Mark. Let's see. Is the board open to having pharmacy tech representation as a board member in the future? That is something that's determined by statutory law. You're more than welcome to review the statute of how the pharmacy board is composed. It's in the first section of the Pharmacy Practice Act, and it defines what type of individuals are on the board. Currently, that law defines the board as 7 members, 5 of which are professional pharmacists, and 2 of which are public numbers. Now, the composition with the board can change, but that's based on statute, and that's not something the board, DORA, or DPO determines. That's something that is determined by legislature. All right. Last question. I know you've already answered this, but how will we know the certification is approved?
Once your certification is approved, you will receive an email from our office stating, congratulations, your certification has been approved, with instructions on how to print your certificate.
Okay, I think that's all the questions that have come in. I want to thank everybody that's been able to attend and present the questions that you have had. Joe?
I just wanted to add that we will take the questions and we will compare them with our current FAQ. And if there's something that really stands out, we will add it to our FAQ, which is on the website. But I really encourage everyone to review the pharmacy technician and the pharmacy board website. They have the link to the new rules, the Practice Act, as well as the FAQ. So again, it's important. This is your livelihood, and it's important to know. I know some of our jargon can be difficult, but it's important that you become familiar with it. For those on the phone who are new to sort of regulation and what that looks like with pharmacy tech. So I just encourage you to explore and read and ask your supervisors or your inspectors how they can be helpful, but engagement is a plus. So welcome to the world of DORA.
Yeah, welcome everyone. Again, I want to reiterate what Joe has said. I think if you're brand new to pulling up the Pharmacy Practice Act, if you're brand new to pulling up Pharmacy Board rules, when you open it up, you'll find a very long and detailed document, especially our Pharmacy Board rules. And I don't want that to be off-putting for you to learn more about your current profession as you become certified with the board. I really recommend when you pull up the Practice Act and when you pull up Pharmacy Board rule to start by looking at yourselves as technicians, and you can do control find and navigate to those parts of law that are focused around you and your profession. And I would start there. And you may find that it's not as ominous as you think, right? There's parts of rule that may not apply to you in your practice. But I would start there and know that the Practice Act and Pharmacy Board rule is the same as law. Board policy is something the Pharmacy Board has delegated to the program or has further clarified that is not specifically law, but provides guidance to the program.
So I just want to thank everyone for participating today. I want to thank Donna and Mark and Dimitri. Donna especially, you handled all those beautifully, and your team is working very hard. I also want to welcome everyone that is coming into the pharmacy technician profession and the certification. We certainly want you to be successful. Our mission is consumer protection, but consumers are best protected when there is a strong workforce and they have a lot of choice. So with that, I will say good afternoon. Thank you for participating, and we will post this webinar on the website. So have a good afternoon.